alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello and welcome to Alive After Reading. I'm Tim Niederreiter, and with me today is a guest connected from a little writing group on Facebook that we're both members of, Blaze Ward. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Well, it's great to have you. I read a little nonfiction of yours, which is kind of what got me interested in talking to you, which is kind of unusual for this show because most of the time I just kind of reach out to people or get arranged to talk to people I don't know a whole lot about. But I read your Famous or Rich nonfiction piece, and that really got me interested in talking to you. But you write a lot of fiction too. What sort of stuff do you write about?
Primarily, I write science fiction across all the variety of subgenres in there. I also write a little bit of mystery, a little bit of contemporary fantasy, as well as sword and sorcery kinds of fantasy. But the bulk of my stuff is science fiction, and I write at crazy speeds, so that's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing. How fast do you write? Yeah, how many words are you getting done each month or whatever?
So, in the old days, it was called pulp speed because the writers who were putting short stories into the pulp magazines, as a rule, were writing 1 million words a year. They would type all day. They'd hit the end of a story. They'd pop it out, push a new piece of paper in, start typing a new story, and mail them off. And that worked out to about 1 million words. When it came back in the modern era, Dean Wesley Smith actually classified it so that 1 million words a year is about 83,000 words a month. Pulp Speed 2 is 100,000 words a month, or about 1.2, and then it goes up 1.2 at that. And I'm generally right now writing at what we call Pulp Speed 3. So I'll cross it at 4 this year, and it will be right around 4,000 a day, about 120,000 words a month.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, it's really quick. And so do you write every day, generally?
I'm full-time writer. I have started taking one weekend day kind of half off because I've got a D&D campaign and we get together and play during the day online, Zoom usually. So those days I only get maybe 1,000 words done, and then I have to make that up the rest of the week. Today I got my 4,000 in, and I'm kind of goofing off, and I'll go back and write later.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, ever since I started dictating words, I'm now thinking, 10,000 words a day sounds good because I'm so much faster when I dictate. But it's difficult to do, though. Yeah.
I have considered it, but one of my problems in science fiction is I use so many made-up words and so many exotic words that I would spend an hour editing for every hour I was writing, so I don't really end up gaining that much. And
That's
I'd rather
fair.
see the words on the page as I'm going and fix them.
That's fair. Also,
But that's
it depends on your typing speed, too, obviously. If you aren't an incredibly slow typist, you don't get as much out of it, generally.
When I'm perfectly in the zone, and this happens occasionally, the best I've ever managed is about 3,000 words in 1 hour. But I was literally, the keyboard was on fire.
Yeah.
Normally, 1,500 words in an hour, I'm on pace, I'm rocking. I spend about 4 hours in the morning with breaks and go for a walk and get my brain straight and come back and write some more.
No, that makes sense, and I will agree that generally editing dictation is for me at least, it's pretty rough. But
everybody I've ever talked to,
it is very different. Yeah, and I obviously I started dictating that in just last year after typing for 15, 16 years. Pretty dedicated to that. But now, anyway, that's enough about me. I mean, I'm sure the listeners are sick of hearing about me because I talk about this like every time. I mean, you can take if there's a drinking game for this podcast, I think they've probably taken a shot by now. So
I write fast. I write science fiction. I write long, pretty epic series. I just finished the Jessica Keller Chronicles, which was 9 main novels plus a side trilogy that falls between books 7 and 8, and a couple of other short stories that set up characters. And that came in a little over 1 million words. Just that. There.
Nice. That's a healthy amount of words for a series. I mean,
It was. Most of my series run 250 to 400,000.
So shorter stuff, and you make so you make your whole living writing. Is that true?
Full-time living. Yep.
That's rocks,
I
dude.
am. Yeah, and I live in Seattle. Well, outside of Seattle, but I live in Seattle, and I'm making a nice living. I'm not rich, but I don't have to put on pants in the morning either, and that's really victory.
That's the trade you make, right? You get this freedom.
Yep.
But you and you just have to work, and also you get to keep basically all the spoils except for the cut or whatever of your distributors and the other people.
I consider that my marketing budget.
Exactly.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
Because if you are following me on Amazon, you will get an email that said, "Hey, Blaze Ward just put up a new book for pre-order. Here's a link." Or, "Hey, latest novel just went live on. Here's a link." Or, "Did you miss this? Here's a link." And they do that. And I follow myself, so I get them and I see them, and you can see the spikes. So they do that for me. Kobo doesn't do that for me. Apple does. I'm Apple. I'm not an Apple guy, so I don't follow them real closely. Barnes & Noble doesn't. Nobody else does, but Amazon wants to win.
They do pretty well with that, with the book marketing especially. I mean... Yeah. They get you coming and going now. I'm just not just we're not going to focus on this, but but what I mean by that is now they're asked. Do you do advertising through Amazon as well? I'm just curious because
I do, and as I talked about in the "Do You Want to Be Famous or Rich" article that I put out, I do really passive ads. So I set up an ad. It's general. It's on Amazon. It's got a medium to low buy and a really low daily rate, and I just leave it sit out there for months. And on a usual month, my spend is about $200.
Okay.
Just background noise. But as a rule, I'm advertising book ones in series, and I'm breaking even there. But if you buy book one of a 14-book series, I'm pretty sure you're going to work your way through it, and that ad's going to pay for itself.
Oh, easily. Yeah. I'm working on producing more books to actually, because I have this bad ADHD to switch around between projects. Mm-hmm. And I frequently, and so I've written a bunch of book ones, and I'm really working on getting more sequels out.
So in my nonfiction, my wife and I write a series called Business for Breakfast. And one of those that I wrote recently is series and continuity for the professional writer. And it specifically talks about why fans want that immersive, long arc series, hundreds of thousands of words, lots of books, because of Game of Thrones, because of all these TV shows that they watch where your storylines go for whole seasons. So the fans are trained to want that. 30, 40, 50 years ago, you wrote a book, a novel, and it was self-contained, and that was great. And you were good, and you go write something else for the next one. And you can't do that anymore and really be successful.
Right. Yeah. That's definitely the truth at this point. I can tell you that firsthand now, because I've written a lot of book ones at this point, and they just don't. They just don't move the needle, you know. Yeah, I've got a few book twos in the pipeline right now.
Good.
And
one of my
threes.
Things, my wife always just wrote the individuals because she was trad pubbed back 25, 30 years ago. But for her, she learned the trick: same characters, different story. So she could tell trilogies where everything happened in book one and it was self-contained, and then everything happened in book two and it was self-contained, and book three and self-contained, but same character, same setting. So that's how she writes her trilogies and her series.
So that works pretty well still? Or
I tend to write these huge arcs where there's a 9-novel story arc, and then I resolve it smaller stories as I go.
Yeah, nice. I mean, so you basically have an idea for the whole arc before you get started. Is that the case? Or
yeah, there's the old argument about people who, we call them gardeners or architects.
Yeah. People
who meticulously plot out everything's an architect. People who just plant seeds and see what grow is a gardener. And I write into dimly lit hallways. I know where the novel's supposed to end. I know roughly how it's supposed to end. I have no idea how it will end until I get there.
Yeah, it sounds a lot like how I handle it too.
The novel I'm in the middle of, I just crossed 40,000 words today, and it's going to come in about 60. And I got a pretty good idea what we need to do with the last 20,000 to bring it in. But that could be anything.
Yeah, who knows what'll happen.
But I trust writer brain to come up with a good story.
Right. It's a lot like you mentioned Dean Wesley Smith earlier. His book Writing into the Dark, really quality.
Yep, that's exactly it.
And I really enjoy that one. And that's kind of what I've been trying to do more, especially when I'm doing a project that isn't, I guess, isn't one I've already been thinking about for a long time. You know, a lot of my books are like, okay, this has been on the shelf for a long time. We're coming back to sequels or whatever. And those ones I tend to have more of an idea of what I want to do. So I write a few things down at the beginning, just like notes or whatever. But now I'm like, okay, yeah. Oh, what'd you say?
Dean is really good at that. He and I are old friends. Well, old friends. I've known him for about 6 or 7 years, and he's one of my mentors. His wife, Chris Rush, is another one.
Yeah. They have a lot of good advice for writers out there. That's for sure.
Yep.
Both business and craft. Yeah. Anyway.
And that's always the key. Understanding the business of how you're going to write is half of it, because writers need to be business people if they want to go indie. If you want to go trad pub, your publisher will handle everything, and you just chuck them a manuscript. But you'll go broke doing that because they'll keep all the money. That's why I'm indie.
Yeah, and that's assuming your book even is a hit and you can keep getting published through them.
Yep.
That's a lot.
You'll always be able to find a publisher willing to publish you. You may not be New York, but the second tier are not bad. There's a third and a fourth tier if you get down far enough. And it's really, they'll handle all the everything if you don't want to learn it. Because it is difficult to learn, but once you've got it, it's easy to do. The technology gets better every week.
Yeah, I hear that. I mean, I can't stress enough how helpful it has been for me to, it took me 5 years to learn Photoshop, more or less. Now I make my own covers.
Yep.
But formatting books is not the challenge it used to be. You know, that's really simple.
I use a software called Vellum, where you drop a docx file in, and I've got pretty ebooks and print books in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I use Drafty Digital for some of my books, but just because that does the automatic formatting. And they do a very good job. I've got a few books that are a little fancier, the big fantasies, but that's also pretty doable. I mean, even for free, even without a program like Vellum, which is excellent. Yeah.
So, and then I do small covers in BookBrush, which is actually an advertising software. BookBrush.com. Corey and the gang built this software that was designed to make ads for Facebook and Amazon and all these other places where you could put up a book ad. And I met him last year and I said, hey, could I do covers with this? He's like, what do you mean? So I laid it out. He's like, oh yeah, we could do that. So I actually worked with them over the winter, and they now do covers. They're pretty good. And I do all of my short fiction with those. My wife is the graphic artist. She does all my novels, but that's the expensive stuff. I do all my covers with free art off of Pixabay.
Pixabay.
$5 a month subscription to BookBrush, and I do all my covers there.
Nice. So what's your? You mentioned the latest series you just wrapped up. Do you have any other really?
Actually,
what?
That one wrapped up 3 ago.
Oh, okay.
So I've got the Science Officer books, which the Science Officer is number 1, and there are 8, but I'm going to drop 9 and 10 in December. And it's an ongoing series that's going to run at least another 8 or 10 because I'm having so much fun with them.
Wow.
The Jessica Keller book is Oberon, Auberon, and run through 9 plus 5 others. The Shadow of the Dominion was the one that most recently wrapped up. That starts with Longshot Hypothesis. The Star Tribes, book 4 came out this month, and it completes with book 5 next month. And then I've got another series that I drop occasional science fiction secret agent called The Handsome Rob Gigs. One of those is coming in September. I've got a new series that's called The Hunter Bureau, and I'm dropping 2 of those in the fall, and then more Science Officer, and then a whole new series called Lazarus that I'm going to drop January to June of next year.
So yeah, you're a Rolling Stone, sir. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. Oh no, my goal is to drop a novel every month. And those are somewhere between 40 and 60, but occasionally I write stupidly long ones. I wrote a book 1 this spring that was 165,000 words, and it's only book 1.
Yeah,
At least
respect.
3.
I have one of those too.
5.
I've done one of those,
Yeah.
but not as consistently. Don't have a bunch of other ones coming after it at this point.
Yeah. I've got a series called Air Pirates of Serenica, which is 30s adventure pulp, except one of the characters is an alien who accidentally got stranded on Earth. And I've got 3 of those, and I'll put them out at some point. And I got a whole bunch of other book 1s that I've written the 1 and haven't gone back and written the 2 through whatever. But 40,000 to 60,000 words for a novel, and I'm writing 100 to 120 a month.
Yeah.
I'm putting out a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, I guess the math adds up there. You get like 2
On
novels
my-
worth of words.
Yeah, on my personal web store, it's blazeword.com/shop. I just put up a whole bunch of short fiction, 99 cents a piece, and I get to keep almost all the money. So it's a way better deal for me.
And that stuff, is
And
that
I
exclusive
write-
with your site, from your site?
About half of it, yeah.
Okay.
I write serialized short fiction as well as serialized long stuff. So it's 1, 2, and 3 of this and 2 of those. And it's just, here's an ongoing series with short stuff. And I've got several more that went out through my Patreon. And I promised my Patreon people that they get it exclusive for a period before it got out. So I got a couple of those that'll come out at some point later this year, early next year.
Okay.
Post-apocalyptic cyber stuff.
Ooh, sweet. So,
I just finished 7 of them that'll up into one novel, and all my patrons got them.
So do you mind if I ask you a question about your process as far as editing goes? Because you create a lot of words. Does your draft come out pretty clean, or is there...
Absolutely clean.
Oh, okay.
So I get up in the morning, take a shower, fix myself breakfast, have some coffee, read the news, read my comics, check the world. And then I open up whatever the current manuscript is and bounce back either a chapter or to the previous time this character had a POV. And I read through that chapter, making corrections and tweaks and edits as I go, catching misspelled words. This sentence doesn't make a damn bit of sense 3 days later, whatever. And then I'm in voice when I start writing new words. And so when I hit the bottom of a novel, it's called cycling. I have been cycling up on the novel constantly. I'll read it once, put it away for about 2 weeks, and then bounce back and read it again, send it off to my first reader who reads for emotional content and sends me stuff. And then I will fix everything she does and send it off to my copy editor. But yeah, my first drafts are my only drafts. They're clean.
Sweet. That's also really cool. I've never been able to get cycling to work, but specifically because I started dictating, and then it became the time commitment is so much greater to transcribe the work, and then like, okay, now I've got to go through here, and that slows me down a lot. I'm much more of a finish the book and then go over it again in creative voice, mind you. I don't I just read it again and as if I'm writing it though again.
Yep. But it's also a muscle, and when you develop the muscle, you develop speed. So for me, 3 to 4 hours work in the morning, I've got 4,000 words that are probably almost good enough to go to copy editor. I put them one pass through my first reader, and whatever the first reader say, hey, this sentence doesn't make any sense, this paragraph needs to be reworked, whatever, fix that and go.
Yeah, no, that's...
I know people who write broken first drafts and then have to go back and completely rewrite the draft. And I'm like, I've already written this novel. I don't want to write it twice.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, that's a drag. And I have done that, actually.
Yeah.
I've written the same story a couple times because I thought the first version sucked.
In the Trad Pub days, a single 60,000 word novel was all you wrote in a year.
Yep.
And so you might spend a year. So you would write a draft, and then you would not like it, and you'd rewrite it, and then you'd send it off to your editor, would not like it, and you'd rewrite it again. And Dean Wesley Smith talks about if you're going to walk across country, or do you want to walk the same 100 miles of road for 10 years?
Yeah. I mean, when you put it that way, it doesn't sound like much of a choice, but yeah, I see your point. I mean, I'm trying to slim down my process, but I just need to make sure the draft's clean when it goes out, because my rough draft, of course, because my rough draft is such a monster now.
Yep. So.
Yeah, no,
But
that's cool.
You can write fast. It's just a case of, for me, I am a professional writer. This is my job. So I get up and I write 6 days a week, at least half day.
Mm-hmm.
The other half day, I might go into town because I live out in the boonies. And then in the evenings, I'm editing things for my wife. I'm publishing 2 different magazines right now. One of them is called Boundary Shock Quarterly, and it's purely science fiction. The other one is Blaze Ward Presents, and it's an open invite on a theme that I do twice a year.
Neat.
Those are more crazy. The most recent one we came out with June, the entire theme that I told people to write was nuns with guns.
I wish I'd heard about
Your
that.
story?
I wish I had been around to hear about that, because I actually do have a book that's kind of like that.
Yeah, your story must include a nun. The nun must have a gun at some point. Go.
There you go.
I got contemporary fantasy. I got science fiction. I got mystery. I got all sorts of... I got historic that blew me away.
Ooh.
There are a couple in there that were just, oh my God. For the one for the fall, I've reached out to a couple of musicians and said, here's the theme we're going to work on in the fall. You want to write me some music? We'll include the sheet music in the book and send a link to your recording so they can go buy it. And one of the guys is like, okay. And he sent me an MP3 about a week ago and says, this work? Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
So we're actually going to have sheet music in the next one. Because
Wow.
I can do anything I want in the modern age.
You get to be you're your own boss, and the sky's the limit. It sounds like, yeah.
Yep, and the tools are so easy that I only spend a couple hours a month on my magazines. I have to read all the stories and then organize them and then publish them.
Well, nice. What sort of stuff do you use what sort of software are you using there?
That's Vellum.
Vellum.
Everybody's required to send me a docx file. I read them. You drop the docx file into Vellum, and Vellum says, oh, I know what to do with this, and turns it into an amazingly pretty manuscript. It's only available for Mac, so I actually went and bought a refurbed Mac at a pawn shop so I could install the software. But it is so worth it because time equals money.
Well,
if you're only going to publish 1 or 2 things a year, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
My wife and I are going to publish 70 to 80 titles this year.
Well, there you go. Even if you just took that down to 35 each, you take the average there. That's a huge number of books, even if you had half that many.
Yeah, I'm going to publish at least 1 novel a month. She's publishing a novel a month. We've got 3 magazines between us, and she's going to start a 4th one soon. And then I'm putting all sorts of short fiction up on my website. I mean, it's just, I couldn't do it if it took me hours of labor and pain to do this. It takes me minutes.
Nice. Well, if time's money, then I think we spent it. It's been a good chatting with you, Blaze.
I'm happy to keep talking. I'm happy to come back more. I've got lots of things to say. Anybody who follows me on my blog posts knows that.
No, I'd love to chat with you again, but we're running a little low on time for this week. So thanks for being on the show,
Absolutely.
Blaze. And I think people know where they can find you by now. Yeah, you're welcome. I think people know where they can find you by now, but remind us once again where they can find all your stuff.
BlazeWard.com. Easy as that.
Nice.
BLAZEWARD.
Nice, yes. And you can find more about this show at mentalcellularpublications.com or timniederreiter.com. I can't pronounce my own name. God. And you can also find my books on Amazon.com. I currently have a few out, not nearly as many as Blaze, but I'm working on it. So thanks for listening, everybody. Have a good one.
That tears it.